Alright, continuing on our factoring journey, we're going to look at some grouping techniques to help us with our factoring today. So what are the steps we've learned so far? Remember, the first step is to always do the GCF first. The second thing that we learned was to use a factor sum tree. Now, between GCF and factor sum tree, occasionally there's a middle step. And that middle step, we're going to call 1.5, is to group. So we're going to take a look at this today. So as I'm looking at this problem, the first thing I ask myself is there a GCF? No, there's not. So instead what I can do is I notice that these first two terms do have a GCF, and the last two terms have a GCF. So I'm going to divide each set of terms by their own GCF. The first two can be divided by 5x squared, and the last two can be divided by 2. Let's see what happens. 15 divided by 5 is 3. X minus 2. Remember, on the outside you need to put the GCF. Then I'm dividing by a positive 2, so I'm going to write a positive 2. I divided by 2 and I got 3x minus 2. Now here's the fun bit. If grouping works, what you will end up with is the same thing inside the set of parentheses. If you don't end up with the same thing, you can't factor it this way. But if you do, whatever's inside those parentheses, you're going to write one time, and what's on the outside, you're going to smash them together into their own set of parentheses. Now, why did I do that? Well, what I want you to think about, looking at this second set here, to go simplifying this instead of factoring it, I would do FOIL. First, outside, so I'm taking 5x squared times 3x and times 2, that's what this says. And I would do 2 times 3x and 2 times negative 2. That's what this says. So this here is just another way of writing a FOIL problem. So your final answer, let's erase all that extra mess. Final answer is this. Let's try another problem. Factor by grouping. So as I'm looking at this problem, I notice that I have a common factor of A, and I have a common factor, no common factor, but I can call a common factor 1. Let's see what happens. I divide out by A, I get 2A plus 5B. I divide out by 1, I get 2A plus 5B. That was successful because whatever's inside the parentheses is the same. I'm going to smash together what's on the outside and rewrite one of the repeated. Let's try another one. I don't see a common factor. But, you know what I do notice? These two might have a common factor. And these two have a common factor. So I'm going to reorder this. I'm going to write 3xy minus 3x. And I'm going to write plus 2 minus 2y. So now my groupings look like this. Let's see what we can do. Divide by a 3x, divide by a 3x. 3x goes on the outside. I'm left with y minus 1. Here I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2. I'm left with 1 minus y. Didn't quite work. That's not the exact same thing. So this problem was a case of not being able to factor. So we would say that this is not factorable by grouping. Let's try this problem. Common factor, I could divide by 3x squared y. So I'm left with 7xy minus 3. I can divide by 2. And again, you'll notice I have the same thing in parentheses, so I smash together 3x squared y plus 2 times 7xy minus 3. Final answer. So, why don't you give that a try? Do some more practice in My Math Lab, Chapter 6-2, Part B.